Other things, thyroid influences the rate of glucose uptake. So we talked about, you got to get that sugar up and get it burned. Not enough thyroid hormone, I can't move the glucose. Thyroid reduces target insulin binding. So if I don't have my thyroid moving in the right direction, I am not going to get my metabolism to function correctly, and I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to gain visceral fat, I'm going to be more insulin resistant. Other areas, low levels of thyroid, increased lipids. I can't tell you how many times people come in and are like, oh yeah, I'm on a statin drug. Would anybody check your thyroid hormones? Well, why would they do that? I'm told I've got a genetic issue with my cholesterol. We had a gentleman come in, it wasn't, but I think it was earlier this week. He had a 300 total cholesterol. I think he was running about a 210 LDL and a 30 HDL. His triglycerides were about 400. Hep B, his liver enzymes were up. And, we checked, and we checked his thyroid. This was what we did 8 weeks ago on the guy. And it was low. So we straightened his thyroid out, gave him a couple things to help with his cholesterol, and lo and behold, he comes back after 8 weeks. His LDLs are down to 120, his total lipids are down to 187, his HDLs went up, and his triglycerides are down under 200. Well, why does triglycerides go down? Because thyroid hormone is responsible for carrying glucose to cells to be burned, and when you burn glucose, you won't make as much triglycerides. And there's all kinds of other issues. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I don't want to focus on this too much. But thyroid is important as to how your body burns metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Look, carbohydrates are not bad. It's just that we have created bodies that are so dysfunctional on utilizing carbohydrates that now they're bad. Nobody was obese from eating carrots and potatoes in the 1940s, right? But, oh my God, don't eat a carrot. And if you ever eat a potato again, you are not in the wheatgrass club, right? I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, look, let's call it like it is, man. Wonder Bread, potatoes, and carrots were the staple of the American diet in the 1940s, and people weren't walking around fat. People got fat because we continually create environmental load. Stress has gotten higher. We've hidden a lot of sugars, really intense sugars, like high fructose corn syrup, which finally is being recognized in clinical investigators and universities as being damaging, as well as fructose. All right? So, you got to begin to look at these things and go, what are we talking about, this thing about all carbs are bad? That's not it. It is true that you may need to have a sliding scale of carbohydrate intake from grains as you rehabilitate your insulin receptors and get your body to secrete thyroid hormones correctly so that it's utilized and you can carry sugars to be burned. How many people go on low-carb diets and they blow up bigger than ever after they go off of them? Why? Starve the cells. You don't fix the insulin resistance, right? You're not fixing it. All you're doing is going on a diet to starve the cells of these low carbs. But you're not fixing the insulin receptor and GLUT4 relationships that package glucose. And now I go off my diet. And I eat 3 times as many carbs as I did before because they feel really good and my serotonin is gone by the time I've been on a low-carb diet for 90 days. And now I'm eating everything in the house, and I can't control it anymore, and now I've rapidly gained my weight back. All kinds of important issues around thyroid. Of course, things like autoimmunity, which I've already talked about, toxicity, everything from yeast and fungal endotoxins to food antigens to heavy metals to pesticides, halogens, chlorine, fluorine, bromine, all bind to thyroid. I mean, our water in Cincinnati tests stronger. You can actually swim in our tap water, and it's higher in chlorine than pool water. No, my business, our president at our Living Longer Institute, he's got a pool. Checked it. Wasn't growing anything. It's clear. Went and checked his water that was coming out of the tap. More chlorine and no tap water. But you know what's told about Cincinnati water? Nothing's going to grow in it. Nothing's going to live in it. I wonder what that means. So you get all kinds of issues. I don't want to, once again, not belabor the point, but pesticides, another issue with thyroid function. I mean, there's studies that show, literature review of the effects of synthetic chemicals like DDT show that mild thyroid disruption can occur in adult humans just from exposure to things like pesticides. I wonder if any of us got exposed to pesticides today. You think? Herbicides or pesticides? I had a cocktail with some in it earlier, but it was, no. I mean, honestly, when you think about it, when do you not get exposed? So what's the bottom line on this? Low doses of ubiquitous environmental contaminants can alter hypothalamic, pituitary, and thyroid physiology. This was in sexually mature males. This was actually in a rat study when I just changed. But reality is this. We're seeing these issues in boys, right? We're seeing these hormonal fluxes in girls, boys, more exposure to environmental contaminants, major shifts in their pituitary and hypothalamus's ability to regulate hormonal regulation. Effects of PCBs on organochlorinated pesticides on thyroid. In long-term heavy exposure adults, this is in humans, all thyroid volumes significantly higher than control. That's out of a real left-wing journal called the Journal of Occupational Environmental Medicine, right? So we shift. We talked about, we're talking about all these 9 keys. We've got the thyroid's important. The hypothalamus and the pituitary is important. What else is going to be important? The pancreas is going to be really important. Why? Well, it's what drives this whole issue of insulin regulation and metabolic disruption. And really, probably the most telling, I don't even have the most telling statistic, 1997, 5% of all newly diagnosed diabetic children were type 2 diabetics. In 2002, 45% of all newly diagnosed diabetic children were type 2 diabetics, meaning it was induced by, most likely, lack of exercise and bad nutrition. 45%. That's a huge shift in just a short period of time. Cincinnati is one of the big areas they're studying for that because we have got an unbelievably high rapid induction of type 2 diabetic children in our area. And I don't think it's quite clear what it is yet, but something's going on. Something's definitely happening. And the fastest growing area of diabetics is actually the 30 to 40-year-old category. So we have 30 to 40-year-old people now being diagnosed as diabetic. Now, what's that mean for them? It means you're going to live with the disease of diabetes probably for 50 years, which means you're going to have more kidney failure, more neuropathy, more peripheral vascular disease, more coronary heart disease, more amputations, more blindness, more Alzheimer's, more dementia, because the earlier the process of blood sugar dysregulation starts, the earlier the process of glycation, inflammation, poor utilization of glucose in your tissues, and poor delivery of oxygen into your tissues, whether it's your brain, in the periphery, in your vital organs, it's happening. And it's happening in our 9-year-olds, and it's happening in our 15-year-olds, and it's happening in our 30-year-olds. I mean, it's just unbelievable to see the amount of people with disrupted insulin and blood glucose now. It's just, it's staggering.